Do not jump on your serve. Instead, accelerate your serve properly and allow the feet to get off the ground by themselves. If we look at high level serves and see how the feet are leaving the ground, it's clear to see that it's not an active leg drive or a jump. Number one, the feet will slowly roll off the ground. Now, if you try to jump and try to perform this kind of delayed rolling of the feet, you will not be able to do it. If you actively jump, the feet will kind of violently spring off the ground and they will not roll towards the tip of the foot. And on most serves, it's usually the side of the front foot that will last leave the ground. If you try to perform a jump in this fashion, it would be absolutely impossible to do so. And number two, high-level servers will most of the time have the back foot come off the ground first. Now you can try this at home. Try to violently jump while leaving one foot off the ground. You will find this impossible to do. When we jump, both feet will simultaneously lift off the ground. On a tennis serve, however, the majority of players will have the back foot lift off the ground first. And this is a clear indicator that there are other forces propelling the feet off the ground and that it's not an active jump. And there's two ways to perform a jump. You can do it from a stationary position or you can do it on the run where you would jump off of 1 foot or 2 feet. So let's just take a stationary jump as an example. So what should happen is we have to load the body by bending the torso down a little bit. And now we're going to draw some power from extending the torso upwards, and we're also going to push down on the ground, and it looks something like this. Now on the tennis serve, we're in the exact opposite position. So what I call the reverse C. We're going to get on our toes, we're going to bend our knees, we're going to bend our torso backwards. Now if you try to jump from this position, you would get absolutely no power. You can try this out at home. Get into the trophy position with your knees bent, get on your toes, bend your back slightly backwards, and try to jump upwards. You will get absolutely no power from this type of jump. On a tennis serve, however, we can very effortlessly leave the ground from this exact position, and the body mechanics that are making us leave the ground have nothing to do with the legs. So if we get into this trophy position, and now we see that the non-dominant shoulder is above the dominant shoulder, and now we have to bend our back slightly backwards, get on our toes, bend our knees, and now if we accelerate the serve and reverse this shoulder position, this is going to help us get off the ground. This is the primary reason why the back foot gets off the ground first. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to accelerate upwards, and you can see how effortlessly I can get off the ground, while if I do it without the actual service motion, I have a very difficult time leaping up in the air. If you're actively driving your legs or trying to jump on your serve, this will cause major problems to your technique, and there are several reasons why. Reason number one is the timing. So what is supposed to happen is when we drop the racket, we are at the same time initiating the leg drive. Now if you try to do this, it would be impossible to time. You have to remember the racket drop is occurring in milliseconds. The serve starts to accelerate really fast. So if you try to jump at the exact moment when the racket is dropping, you would either do it too early or you would do it too late, and with the timing would be absolutely impossible. But what you see from the high-level servers is their timing of the legs is always the same. If you watch carefully, when the racket is in the trophy position, you see the weight is on the front foot, and then when the tip of the racket is pointing straight down, this is the moment of liftoff. And you can check any high-level players, they're all the same. The body starts to lift off the ground when the tip of the racket is pointing towards the ground. Another problem that you will find on your serve if you're actively trying to jump is that tiredness will set in. If you're actively jumping in long matches, let's say you're playing for 3 hours, eventually your legs are going to get tired and your serve is going to get weaker if indeed you are jumping on your serve. But what you'll see from the best servers of all time, their serve does not get worse, it actually gets better as the match goes on. One example is the Isner-Mahut match. These guys were so dead, they had blisters all over their feet. They could barely move. However, they kept serving aces until the very end of the 11-hour match. And finally, what you're going to find impossible to do is transfer the weight from the back foot onto the front foot. I have so many students that come to me and they try to get the weight shifted from the back foot onto the front foot, and they just simply cannot do it. And the reason why they cannot do it is that it's simply impossible to get the weight from the back foot to the front foot. And what we have to do is put this into context of the service motion. So here's what's going to happen on the serve. So we're going to have a different rhythm depending on the player. So let's just go straight into the trophy phase. So what's going to happen in the trophy phase, we are going to have the weight already shifted onto the front foot. The majority of the weight will be on the front foot, because what happens next is, as the racket drops down, we already discussed that when the tip of the racket is pointing down, the feet are already off the ground. So what happens from here to here is happening in milliseconds. This time span is so short. So if you try to get from the back foot onto the front foot in this time frame, you will not be able to leave the ground in time, and you will perform the lifting off the ground too late. In addition to that, the only way you would be able to load the back foot and then jump onto the front foot is if you threw the ball behind the baseline. So this is the only way you could do that. If you throw the ball behind, you can load back here and then land on the front foot, and what you will find is that you will never end up inside the baseline. So what should happen instead, you have to throw the ball inside the court regardless of what serve you're attempting, and then naturally, as you are leaning towards the ball, the weight will shift more towards the front foot. So throughout the service rhythm, the weight will be on the back foot for a brief moment in time, and this is going to depend on the player. Every player is going to have a little bit of a different rhythm. So let's just take my rhythm as an example. So what's going to happen on my serve, I'm going to go on the front foot, and then indeed I'm going to go on the back foot. But this is happening way before the acceleration phase. This is the rocking motion. So what happens on my serve, and many serves are very similar to this, is that when the weight shifts onto the front foot, the toss is initiated, the racket starts to go up. Now this is the same for the pinpoint stance or the platform stance. As the racket goes up, pinpointers will start bringing the foot up to the front foot, and platform players will have the feet in the same position. So what happens next is I already tossed the ball, it's going to be in front. Now even if I try to load the back foot, I will not be able to do it if I throw the ball in front. See, I can throw the ball in front of the baseline and try to load the back foot. This is impossible to do. Naturally, as I toss the ball inside the court, the weight will shift onto the front foot because I'm going to adjust my body according to the ball. And this is why so many players struggle with loading the back foot. They try really hard, but if they throw the ball in front, they find it absolutely impossible to load the back foot. So what they end up doing is throwing the ball behind the baseline, and the problem with that is you're going to have a very difficult time getting the ball into the box if you're throwing it behind the baseline. The trajectory will not work well for you. So the theory that the power comes from the back foot and is then transferred onto the front foot is false, because as we know, the serve accelerates in the racket drop. This is when the serve starts going really fast, and this is where we unload. And we simply cannot hold the weight onto the back foot in this position of the serve. This would not work out for several reasons. The timing would be impossible, and also if we throw the ball in front, we would not be able to lean forward if the weight was on the back foot in this position of the serve. And here's how you can effortlessly have your feet leave the ground. Number one, you have to toss the ball in front. So when we toss the ball in front, we're simply going to lean forward towards the ball that's in front of the baseline. And number two, you have to get on your toes. I see many recreational players who are kind of flat-footed, and when you're flat-footed, your body will not leave the ground. So you have to get on your toes, which will not only help you leap off the ground, but also it's going to help you get that reverse C shape and get into more of a backward bend with the body. In addition to that, you also want to bend your knees a little bit. So if you do those two things, if you accelerate the serve properly, you will be able to leave the ground quite effortlessly, something like this. It is not important how high you get off the ground, but rather that you get off the ground. See, different players will have different athletic capabilities. Some players will get off the ground a lot more than others. However, the greatest server of all time on the WTA Tour, Serena Williams, she has a very small amount of liftoff. Even if you leave the ground just a little bit, this will still help your serve tremendously, and this is possible at any age. Some of my students are in their 70s and they're still able to get off the ground on their serve. So if you don't have your thoughts on the legs, if you execute all the fundamentals correctly, if you accelerate your serve properly, you will be able to leave the ground without ever being conscious of it.